Hello, everybody, and thank you once again for joining us for one of our In Conversation series. I am delighted today to be welcoming an old friend, actually, to have a conversation with us, Elizabeth Anyaegbuna, who, sorry, I've just screwed up your name completely once again, but that's the Anglo-Saxon in me trying to pronounce
I think
things.
that was the best. That was the best version of all the versions so far. So you've done bad. You've done well.
You're too kind. You're too kind. Anyway, Elizabeth and I have known each other for a few years, and Elizabeth, I wanted to have a chat with you because you've had an amazing career, last 20 or so years. I mean, you've worked with a lot of the big media owners, the Skys of this world, the Viacoms of this world. You've worked across sub-Saharan Africa. Obviously, you're here in the UK now. You run your own business. And I wanted to have a chat with you, really to talk a little bit through about your life story, but also some of the stuff that you are doing around the industry where you're promoting diversity and inclusion, which of course is a subject that is close to both of our hearts and something that our industry really needs to grab hold of a little bit more. We're getting better, but there's a long way to go. So I don't know, maybe we could start at the beginning and sort of, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the industry and where you started, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, it's great to be on here, and thanks for having me. So yes, I'm obviously Elizabeth Anyaebuna, and I started at Sky, and like a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people, I sort of fell into the advertising world. I mean, I studied law and studied English literature and had a master's in law, and then ended up in media. So there you go. So I started at Sky in the traffic department, and spent 9 months there, and they realized I was a little bit too chatty to stay in the traffic department, and ended up moving into ad sales, all around advertising. And it was great to sort of start at Sky because it was a real sort of place to have that sort of training, really, in the corporate world, but they really did take training really seriously, I guess. So I learned my trade there because I did all around sort of investment side of things, so spot sales, as well as then moving into more partnership type activity and things like that with brands, where I dealt with sponsorships and partnerships and so on, and of course dealt with the big brands, across and along the way, like your Nikes and your P&Gs and your Mars and so on. But yeah, so I cut my teeth at Sky. I then moved into, I mean, they had obviously the big brands, they have the Sky Channel brands, but they also had the Viacom brands, so your MTV and Nickelodeon and things like that at the time. Then there was a rejuggle, and Viacom took the sales part of those channels, over back to them. And I then moved, not straight away, because I moved via Nickelodeon Digital, as you do. I was account manager at that point. Yeah, exactly. I moved into the digital world, which was great for me, actually, because it then started giving me that 360 experience. So I moved from there into over to Viacom and on the MTV and Nickelodeon digital sites, as in online. Even though that's not what I planned to do. I thought I was still in the TV world, but no, they thought that would be the best position for me there. And so I then handled all the sites and all the, again, the partnerships and sponsorships and advertising around MTV, VH1 at the time,
Wow.
Nickelodeon, yeah, and Comedy Central. And so that was my intro into the digital world. And then I moved back, and I'd obviously moved into, like I said, Viacom. And then I moved. I recognized that I needed to have more knowledge around partnerships and sponsorships and things like that. I've got to create, even though I studied law, but half of me is actually very much the creative person, and I needed that fix at all times. So I moved into the partnerships world and dealt more with that type of branded content and things like that, again, on big brands at Viacom. I then went off piste a little bit, although there was no piste in Africa, and joined a smaller company that had just acquired, or not just acquired, they had not long acquired the Premiership football, English Premiership football for sub-Saharan Africa, which of course in Africa is gold dust.
Oh, yeah.
And I helped set up the ad sales there because they didn't have one of those, and service pretty much sort of 50 countries in Africa to, again, sort of set up the ad sales, helped advise on the traffic system that they needed because they didn't really have one. So my traffic experience at the beginning of my career came in very handy, and of course on 3 years. And then from there, I then moved to I sort of was actually, so it was a company called GTV, and we did amazing things. I mean, it was quite a journey, it has to be said. I then moved back. I moved back from Africa to the UK, joined Turner, again in the sponsorship partnership space, A&E Networks, and a couple of others, and then finally thought, right, okay, I've been itching to start up something for myself, and then head into launching 16 by 9, which is a media agency that is AV focused, above the line focused, screen based. I'm bringing my experience into it, but with a different lens, having come from broadcast world, so very near content, very near audience, as opposed to, I guess, your typical agency person that might be a bit more formulaic in the way they sort of approach things, which is follow the audience, the data, and all that. I come with a little bit of context and creativity, into the mix. And then so I run 16 by 9, and have done loads of other things as well, as you said, sort of passionate, about D&I, and certainly for women in our industry, and then women of color, because there's still not enough of us. I don't know that there is any other Black female agency founder in the UK. There was one that was a co-founder, but I'm not sure that there is one. I mean, there are some senior Black women now in the industry, but I can count them. So we're still few, and so I'm, as you sort of mentioned, I'm president of Bloom, which is a women's network, and I do loads of other things, which I'm sure we will chat about. I could go on and on and on.
No, this is the danger, I think, because when you and I start talking, we just natter on for hours. I think you said at the start there about how you had no specific career plan as such, but actually I always find it very interesting when you talk to people and they start listing out things that they do, that obviously you can start then to draw that line through. And I think it's wonderful the fact that obviously you had that traffic planning, you found yourself in Africa, and actually that all started to come together. And I think it's always very, that a whole idea that you can pull on stuff, and suddenly it does then turn into a career when there's experience there. I mean, Africa must have been coming from the UK to work in Africa and in the media space. That must have been a real eye opener, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it certainly was different. It grew hair on my chest, not literally, but it certainly did. It was just a different way of working. But what I did was I tapped into, you're very right, all the things, and I'm a great believer in that. There's nothing that doesn't sort of present itself or make, or you kind of go, okay, I see why that thing I do then is now sort of mattered here, because you can pull on it. Yeah. And so yes, you're right. But with Africa, it was very much a blank sheet of paper. So what are you going to do, sort of thing. But I did pull on. Obviously, I've got Nigerian heritage. I did pull on that. They do have agencies out there, of course. So I tapped into that and connections. What they do have, which I did really enjoy, was it was very much straight kind of business. It's very much, what have we got? Do we want it? If we do want it, how is it going to work and how much? It was, and it was, obviously that's a bit simplistic, but it pretty much was like that, and you needed to shift your way of dealing, because of course you've got different cultures, and I was thankful that I had my heritage to be able to be aware of needing to do that. But also, what I did love about the job was I could see the money that we got in, because what we did was we we basically sponsored local football teams in Uganda or Kenya or Ghana or all those sorts of places, and you sponsored them, so you could see the money that you were bringing in was actually ending up on the shirts on their back, and then the money also meant that let's say hotels or bars or whatever would then air said football games, because we filmed them and aired them, which meant that it was then bringing business in, of course, footfall into said places to be able to watch the film and watch the games. And it was just amazing to actually really follow it all the way to the end and actually see the impact it had within the community. And of course, because it was Africa, it particularly it particularly touched me, of course, having African heritage, to see the impact that we were kind of having. But yeah, no, it was I was sitting with the FUFA guy in Uganda, so equivalent of FIFA, but FUFA, talking about branding on the pitch in some sort of bar that was playing Dangerous Liaisons in the background. It was hilarious, but certainly well worth it.
No,
it was something else.
I know what you mean, and I know the first time I went to Lagos in Nigeria, and it took me about 2 days, and someone had said to me, "You actually just have to go with it. Don't try and fight anything. Don't be European. Go with it." And actually, if you do that, the whole thing then just falls into place. But I love the energy, and as you say, that sort of directness which comes across to, okay, this is what you want, this is what I want, how are we going to achieve something that works? And there's none of that sort of like messing around. It's straightforward. But equally, I suppose, as you were saying there, it's interesting you brought it up, that's sort of also the linearity, the directness of what you did, and you could see the money going into whatever it had to be, the end cause was. That must have been very gratifying. Was that really the start? Because I know you have a lot of personal interest in sort of social justice and stuff like that. Is something that interests you? Did that really start to where you started to think actually business and this can come together to do good? Was that a point for you?
You know what? You're absolutely right. Yeah, because I knew that I wanted to start my own business, I suppose. So that was a way of kind of, I guess, testing the water, because obviously it's a smaller company, versus a big corps, and so on. And like you say, social justice wise, my studies, whether it's law, I very much, or literature, it was very much around the developing countries, the social justice, the lack of justice, land grab, all that kind of stuff, fair trade, etc. I really studied that, and my master's was around that, even though it had the law, legal element of it, as well as literature, and literature obviously reflects society that we're in. And so I read deep into it and researched deep into it. So of course, then yes, you're right. When I then took on this role, I guess it aligned, and it's not that it wasn't awake in me, it always has been, but it really awakened it, it really made me feel connected, and actually just sort of seeing how things are impacting people, and yes, you're right, it did fuel then what I felt I needed to do, in our industry. Yeah, so it did awaken it gave me immense it just made me feel like I was doing a job that had that purpose. And it's very hard to get purpose and then the job and have it all in the same place, so it really did awaken that, and then fuel what I've then subsequently done with, like I said, whether it's Bloom or being part of MIFA or Join Our Table, which is obviously the new thing we've launched, for Black women in the industry, and so on. And yeah, the career and then the interest and the purpose and the passion has kind of come together and collided, and I always reference back or think back to my studies, my research and stuff, and see it sort of still playing out, sadly, but I can go back to that. I could go back to that. So there's an element of being informed, when I am having a view on something or the other. No, that
makes a lot of sense. And so when you take coming back to the UK, I mean, obviously, the opportunity to start your own business, and 16 by 9 is the agency, as you said, it's everything sort of screen wise. What was the sort of thinking behind getting the business going? What did you want to do? Where did you want it to be? I mean, there's the entrepreneur in you that is very obvious, but obviously also there's the cause side of things. What was the moment you think when Elizabeth woke up and went, you know what, I'm going to start my own business? Because I know you've got a family, and I know you juggle that as well. So what made you make the big jump and leap? Because it is not something you just going to do it, or is it?
Oh no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, it's something that's been tracking along in my head. I just didn't, and I have to say, there may be some people that go, do you know what? I was 100% all in, all nicely planned, all the boxes were all filled out, and everything was all good to go, and I was ready. That's not me. No. Yeah. I mean, I knew I wanted to do it 100%. I knew I was going to go for it. Were all the boxes filled out? No, they weren't. I just thought I've got to go. And maybe that's the entrepreneurial side of me, where I guess if you're there always wanting to everything be perfect, you're never actually going to do anything, So I just took an opportunity, right? So we got some investment. I mean, we put the plan together, and then we got some investment off the back of it, and we went for it. We thought the idea was good, and we were tapping into experience that we had. So we weren't coming in completely, left field. Although we were moving from broadcast, so a media owner to media agency, but there was a bit of that. There was a transition element there. But I just thought I've been procrastinating about wanting to start my own business for how long? Here's the opportunity. I had to take it and go for it. Of course, the pandemic and the cost of living and every other thing certainly wasn't in the business plan. That much I can tell you. But I just thought, you've got to go. I mean, there was an element of like, I am leaving this, to kind of do this, but I felt that I just had to take that leap. Otherwise, I never would have done it. And it's always been niggling, and I've always thought over time, there's certain things in the past I just think, I wish I'd taken that decision. I wish I'd done that thing. Felt a bit risky. I should have gone for it. And you look back and go, and so I've always told myself, if it's a calculated risk, take the chance, as opposed to not. So, and that's what made me go for it. Yes, there was a lot of questions. There still are a lot of questions, but it's something that I felt that I needed to do at that point.
No, I work, as you know, previously with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I have across my life, and dabbled in a little bit of it myself. But equally, I think it's interesting because there's never a right time, and you can put it off and you can put it off. But ultimately, if you don't do it, you do wake up when you're 65 and go, "Gosh, I wish I had done that."
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. If that's different things for different people, I guess. But I know it's not for you. So you have 16 by 9, full service media agency on the screens, as I say at the moment. What are the sort of things you do? Just talk us through so people watching this can get an idea if they need to reach out to you for service, for example.
Yeah. Okay. So we do all the strategy, planning, the buying, and we actually produce. So we do produce. So we do end to end. So we can, we tend to really attract those types of brands that are looking to scale up. So they may be, in a certain sort of level in the digital space, say for example, and they want visibility. They need that brand sort of exposure. They may be known, but maybe the brand isn't necessarily known. So we will do that and look at the strategy to kind of dial that up. Or we have those types of brands who are, because of the mediums that we use, as in obviously TV, cinema, outdoor, YouTube, anything that's screen-based media, because it tends to be mass, in how we target. The brands that we tend to look at are looking for that kind of mass exposure. So we will look at the strategy. We will look at then, we'll put a plan together. Of course, we would then get the best. We'll buy it and get the best sort of plan for them, and then put it on said media that works for them. And like I said, what does set us out as well is we also produce, because we have had that experience from previous. My business partner has had a production company, so we rolled it in.
Yeah.
And we dealt with production companies all the time when we were in broadcast, so it's a very comfortable space, you know, and that, I guess, still scratches that creative itch that we always have. Yes. Yeah, we can't get away from it. So yeah, so we could produce, you know, a TV ad or an ad for you know, cinema or YouTube, or we can help those who do have a creative agency, and we will just, I don't know, make it comply in the UK, say, for example. So what we don't describe ourselves as is a creative agency, because we're not. We'll work with them, but we just produce, we produce ads as well. Or we don't do any of the media or any of that sort of stuff. We'll just produce. We have had some people that have just simply come to us to ask for producing a video or ads, and we've done that for them too.
Okay.
So that's it for 16 by 9. Yeah, pretty much. Hopefully that's clear enough.
No, that's clear. I just wanted to get across because I know you did that producing and the media thing, which is, as you say, it's quite an interesting position in the market. But again, it plays back to that stuff we were talking about earlier. You know, both of your, in terms of your business partner as well, your histories and your experience. And I love the idea that this is sort of scratching that creative itch. I mean, it's the sort of frustrated suit in all of us, isn't it?
Absolutely, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And we just sort of try to say, you know, we are, obviously we're indie, we're an independent, so we are very nimble. We've got, you know, but we're very senior in industry. We do take context and create, but we're not kind of like one of those agencies that just basically looks at something, goes, oh, well, there's your audience, and then we cut it up into boxes and then we just shift it out. You know, we're just not that type of agency. We're very close, stay close. You know, we treat our clients' business like it's ours because we have experience of dealing in that way, you know, where we deal with retailers. We know what pressure points are for businesses. We are business owners, so we tend to think like that. And then apply it back. We might put a wild card, you know, sort of like, well, I know this is what you're thinking about, how about this? Or, you know, we just work with the client, you know, really to kind of like get the best out. And we do think, I do, so certainly think that context is very important, you know, because if you're trying to target someone and you are more relevant in that particular space, then you're certainly going to get their attention more, and you're going to get engagement more. Of course, you need mass sometimes, you know, where you go mass, but you do want some context within it as well, you know. So we're that type of agency that's very nimble and close and experienced, but then slightly very much knowledgeable when it comes to the audience and the content around said audience and business. Yeah, so that's how we work.
Okay, cool. Maybe we touched on this a little bit at the start. I would like to come back to it if I may. And it's the sort of the work you're doing, because I know you're one of the busiest people I know when it comes to startup, which is,
it scares me, terrifies me. Yes.
Yeah, all over the place. But I mean, the diversity and inclusion stuff, I know is very close to your heart. And we've talked before about Bloom, which I know you're president of. Maybe you could sort of explain a little bit about Bloom and the work that you do for that organisation.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm president of Bloom. Actually, I was president this year. I've been at Bloom for 3 years now. I was head of allyship for the past couple of years, and before that, I was just a member. And Bloom is one of the biggest women's networks for Marcom, so for marketing and comms, you know, media industry. And the whole, I guess, the simple message is that it's all about pushing for gender equality. You know, that's kind of what we're pushing for. We know in our and just equal treatment, you know, and we know in our industry that's still not balanced, you know, so we are there out there pushing for that. So Bloom is a place that is a support network for women in our industry, a place to, I guess, call our industry to attention when it comes to certain things. Say, for example, menopause policies, back to parenting, you know, carers. And I'm saying parenting, I'm talking women, of course, but women and dads, you know. and carers, as well as things around women's health, it not being a taboo subject to those who are neurodiverse, and needing to kind of consider those things when you employ them, to of course race as well, and so we at Bloom kind of really dial up the spotlight in those areas, and then shine it out, to the industry to kind of, I guess, give our insights, because there are circa 500 of us in the network, and to then kind of push for change, in a way that is inclusive, so we run a mentoring program, so everyone who's at Bloom is a mentor, which I think is really important, to be a mentor, or have a mentor. And then we also then do other things, whether it's panels, talks, events, that kind of stuff. And what we have done as well is come up with some open source type of tools for, say, menopause, for example, what was just called the Menofesto. Where people sort of, do you like that? Where people sort of sign up on that and implement that into their sort of companies, to sort of help them with that. Or we've got like the Great Return, which is again another tool, for those coming back, from maternity. We have an allyship code, for those who need sort of like a top line guide, when it comes to applying, how to be a good ally, or an active one, because again, a lot of people say ally, but if it's passive or you're not sort of saying much, then you're not really being an ally, not really, but sometimes people don't quite know where to begin, what to say, how to go about it, that kind of stuff. So we do tangible things, as well as obviously just like I said, all the other things that we do. And people seem to really get a lot out of it. The members, what we want from them is obviously they mentor, like I said, but you could get those who join Bloom, they may think, they might just want a support network, because of where they work, and they want something outside work that helps them in work. It could be career, advice that they need, or how to negotiate, or how to just manage a difficult situation, sexual harassment, all that kind of stuff comes into it. As well as those who are just thinking, do you know what, I'm in this role, but I want to change careers. And so I want to, I don't know, get more involved in the marketing side of things, or get more involved in the podcasting, say, for example. And it's a place for them to actually, some people have gone on to change careers off the back of joining Bloom. Yeah, because it's all volunteers, everyone volunteers, and we encourage that. So it's about women's ultimate, development, and shining the light and getting us to a place where we are, like I said, treated equally. But it is, like I said, not about it. It is in an inclusive manner. We have a program called The Exchange, which is for men. So it's like a reverse mentoring, peer-to-peer type of program, where we have men in the industry, senior men in the industry, on a mentoring program with Bloom members. And I think that's really important to get that message across, that we're not a women's network that's not welcoming men, in being the ally and being part of the narrative, because if we don't do that, then it's just an echo chamber and we're all just swirling around in amongst ourselves, so that's Bloom.
The problem, any problem has two sides, and if you don't include both ends of it, you're never going to get to a point of agreement in the middle. I mean, that's it's reasonably obvious, isn't it? But people don't look at it that way. I mean, in your across your career, I mean, do you think things have improved in our industry specifically in terms of D&I? Has there been do you think it's changed an awful lot, or is there still a long way to go? I'd be interested in your opinion.
I obviously what happened in May 2020 seemed to be a bit of a catalyst, in that it got those. It basically shone a serious light. Obviously, the whole Black, Lives Matter movement that sort of happened subsequent to that really shone a light, I guess, for some people who may have, been, just sort of not really paying much attention. So it shoved it into the spotlight, didn't it? And with that, you had some, then companies, I guess, who took up the need, or recognized the need to have a more diverse workforce, and not only have it from a moral perspective, but actually the benefit of it. You know, really, because there is a benefit. There is a benefit. There's an actual financial benefit. You know, now, yeah, it's not just a nice to have. Of course, that is there, but there is. So, I would say that you know, there's more around, say, Black History Month, for example, which before, you know, people just simply may not have really been aware of, or certainly would have been so small in where they were doing it, unless you were one of the community. You know, there's more about the need to be, you know, be aware of those who are neurodiverse, and how do companies sort of deal with that. The whole you know, LGBTQ plus, you know, community, you know, how that is catered for, you know, and like I said, race, you know, ethnicity, and so on. If I'm honest, I think that there's still a long way to go. I think there's a recognition that there needs to be more diverse, and I feel that certainly if I'm looking at women, and then if I'm looking at, say, Black women, say, for example, there is an acknowledgement that there needs to be more recruitment, so they are recruited. But then what then happens is the retention doesn't happen. They don't retain them, and that's because to some degree, I think what does happen is it falls down once it gets past the recruitment stage. So there isn't a shift in culture. There isn't sort of like a need to ensure that person feels that they belong, or they're included. You know, it's very much like, right, you know, come in and off you go. A bit like how it used to be when a woman managed to get into the boardroom, but then you need to do, you know, you find that the woman, it was very much like an old boys network, and you need to kind of behave in that manner, you know? As opposed to just sort of adjusting to be included, you know, to not feel like you are on the outside and don't belong. So I would say that the dialogue around diversity is there. And there is an acknowledgement of it, but there's still a lot to do. And the higher up you go, the less of us there are. You know, say, for example, I'm just going to give you a couple of stats. You know, if you look at, I don't know, board seats, the FTSE 100, say, for example, there's 6%. Yeah, this is a Parker review. There's 6% that's held by, described as ethnic minority women. Yeah. Compared to 34% held by white women, for example. You know, or there's, if you look at the FTSE 250, again, ethnic minority women, they hold 1.5% of seats versus 38% held by white women. And I'm talking about the breakdown within the breakdown, let alone if we now start talking about other elements in there, you know. So we've got a long way to go. We've got a long way to go, really, you know, and that's why I play my part, because I do feel that we have to not only talk about diversity and inclusion, but we have to talk about equity, you know, and we have to talk about driving up that equity, getting ourselves in a place where we have our voice. And I do feel that we have, those of us who have managed to get into the room, you know, need to use our leverage, you know, to shine a light on that, and then get other people in the room, which is why, I don't know whether you saw the thing we launched at the beginning of October, I think it did, for Join Our Table.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, actually.
Yeah, so that's for Black women in our industry, because there's a real lack of that further up, you know, senior, mid to level to senior, certainly senior women, like I said, based on the stats. I mean, I could go on about stats, but I'm not going to do that because I can bore you.
But it's important. It's important.
It's important. Go and check the stats. So what we want to do is actually there's eight of us, 8 women, Black women in our industry, and we are, you know, creating our table and inviting people to join that table. And it's all about equity and dialing up and using our positions to spotlight talent. Because time and time again, we get people go, oh, yeah, we want to get a more diverse panel, or we're looking for people for this particular, but we don't know where to look. And we're like, okay, I'll tell you what, we'll Join Our Table. We're going to create a directory, which the women are going to be in. Of course, there will be some check, you know, on that. There'll be some minimum level of criteria in there, you know, and here they are. And not only are we going to do that, we're now going to spotlight them so you get to know them, but also we are doing it. We're not just sitting back and waiting for someone else to kind of do it, to encourage other people who look like us to kind of feel empowered to go off and do that too. Because a lot of time people think that they want to do something or they should do something. They don't feel empowered. They don't feel like they can, So that's what Join Our Table is. Yeah, Join Our Table is that basically driving that celebration of Black women talent in our industry, spotlighting them and giving them a place, a platform to shine, and then giving those who want access. So partners, sponsors, allies.
I think it's great. And if any of my colleagues watching this are interested in becoming involved, what's the best, either Bloom or Join Our Table, what's the best way to do that, Elizabeth?
Well, so so Join Our Table. I mean, you can follow Join Our Table. So it's at Join Our Table 1 on Insta, and we're on LinkedIn as well. You can get in touch with me. You'll see it. We ran an amazing campaign. We're all over it. I'm grateful to a lot of the outdoor partners who gave us space across nationally, to celebrate it. Obviously, during the Black History Month, a perfect time to launch. And so yeah, it's literally Join Our Table 1 for socials, or just hit me up, on LinkedIn, and we can or go to the website, which is joinourtable.co.uk. So that's it for that. And then Bloom is Bloom UK. It's Bloom. It's again, we're non-profit, and basically I think the thing is to look for me, and naturally you'll see Bloom there too. So anyone who wants to get involved in that, definitely. We've got Bloomfest happening, which is our main event which we run. In fact, we've been talking about venues, haven't we, Paul? Our main event in the year. So that's happening on the 7th of February, and that's hot off the press. We haven't actually launched that, so that's a bit of an exclusive for you.
Look at that. Come to the Hutch channel for exclusives. Yeah.
Exactly. There you go. And so so again, that is open to everyone, to come along and sort of see workshops, thoughts, provoking talks, keynotes, a bit of entertainment, and just a great day. It's literally a great day. Yeah. So that's Bloom. And like I said, I'm in other networks. MIFA, I have to flag it, MIFA, which is Media for All, and that's for people of color. So anyone who in our industry who's of color who feels they need a space, that's it. I'm there on that. And I'm part of Conscious Advertising Network, which is for those who are conscious about how they advertise to people, particularly. That's more sort of like on a digital basis, but it's not just around advertising. It's also about child, just being mindful of child hate speech and misinformation and where you put your advertising and so on. So yeah, I'm part of that. So yeah, you're right. I'm a bit sort of busy.
In some ways, it's sad that we have to have this conversation and you're doing all of this stuff. In other ways, it's very inspiring that you are doing all of this stuff, and I sincerely hope that this does make a change within our professional lifetimes, and we can change those stats in a big way, because it really does need to happen.
Absolutely.
The UK is just one country. We've got a whole world to take on, but that's it's an important thing. Elizabeth, we're almost out of time, but I wanted to thank you so much for basically telling us all about your life and what you're up to. And I will put your details up at the end on a slide. So if anyone wants to reach out to you, they can find you, if that's all right. And yes. Yeah, I'd encourage anyone watching this who wants to get directly involved, and let's make a difference.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Paul. I really enjoyed it.